On this week's episode, it's our Last Jedi Spoilercast as we break down all the good and not so good from the latest installment to the Star Wars saga. Plus, last-minute holiday cooking tips, a preview of Week 16 in the NFL, and so much more. This podcast may not go the way you think as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. I always got that on my S's. It's always like and I can't whistle very good either. That's the funny part. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of this special edition of the PCC Multiverse, as it is our spoiler cast for The Last Jedi, the latest installment to the Star Wars saga. And I'll tell you what, we are so excited, and we have opinions all over the spectrum. We've got Rob McCallum and his co-star, or he'll tell you he's the star, of the movie Nintendo Quest. You want to check that out today on robmccallumfilms.com. It's an outstanding documentary. They're huge Star Wars fans, especially Jay Bartlett, who works with his cosplay charity group Echo 3. You want to also check that out as well. That out as well on Facebook. They're standing by in the cosmic crossfire, ready to share their thoughts on everything Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and also as well. We've got later on in the show, we've got Ben Arnaud from the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. He's going to give some quick holiday cooking tips that you might need in case it's last minute and you're not sure what to do. He's got some thoughts on what you might want to. He's got some thoughts on what you might want to consider doing for your holiday feast this Christmas. And also as well, we've got Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Patriot podcast. He's stopping by with a quick preview of Week 16 in the NFL, but he's also going to share his spoilerish thoughts on The Last Jedi as well. But Josh, you have gotten a lot of flack all over the place on social media for just even posting the words, "So Star Wars." And I'll tell you what, you've been a very brave man indeed. You've been very courteous to people on both sides of the fence as far as their thoughts on The Last Jedi. So, Josh, I want to tell you, it's great to have you back on the show for this week's program. Josh Peterson from Humanican Media. You want to check out all the great stuff that's going on in Humanican Media on Facebook, also as well Twitter, YouTube, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and more. Josh Peterson is here. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, man, not much, dude. I'm still, doing the whole Star Wars debate, and I love that people are discussing it. Because for a while now, we've had this thing where everyone agrees that Star Wars is a cinematic masterpiece, according to modern cinematic culture. It's a huge thing for us, but nobody's really said why or how. But now we're finally seeing these debates unfold, and we're getting to the bottom of all of it. But it's crazy that people are jumping down each other's throats over it. When we're allowed to have opinions. It's just one of those things.
And indeed. And I won't get into what the particulars from the sense of what people are saying, nasty things people are saying to you in regards to that, because I've actually seen firsthand what they're saying. Really just disappointing that people can't have constructive criticism, both for and against your opinions on the film as well. But I'll tell you what, before we go into it, I want to make sure, again, this is a Star Wars: The Last Jedi spoiler cast. If you don't want to know what's going on in The Last Jedi, you hadn't had a chance to check it out yet, and you don't want everything to be ruined for you, catch the movie as soon as you can, as soon as you're able to, and then check out this podcast because it's going to have great thoughts all over the spectrum, both for and against as far as the movie is concerned. So you had your warning. Spoilerific. Spoilers. So there you go. They got their warning. So Josh, I want to give the floor to you because I actually, on our previous show, the Pop Culture Cosmos show, I gave some non-spoilers thoughts on what I thought The Last Jedi, if it was good or not so good. So I'll elaborate more on that in a little bit. But Josh, you have the floor, my friend. Go crazy. What are your thoughts on Star Wars The Last Jedi?
All right, so we discussed this a bit on Topicocalypse last night. So you kind of have an idea of what I think, but I'm going to go through my list here. I made bullet points so I can remember what it is I hate, or not hate, but like dislike about it. All right, so first of all, there are several moments in the movie where the Star Wars lore sort of caves in on itself. An example of this is Force ghosts could never interact with the actual world, or they never said that they couldn't, but it's never been a thing before. So it was kind of weird seeing Yoda be able to summon a bolt of lightning in a ghost form. That was just, maybe it was a rule that they never made, or is something they just made up for this movie, but it was a weird step for the lore. I don't know if it's in the right direction or what. And then ramming a ship into another ship at light speed, like that whole, I appreciated the part, and like as far as what's her name, Holdor's character is concerned, it didn't seem
Vice Admiral Holdo, played by Laura Dern.
Yes, right. As far as her character was concerned, it was, is a noble part with her sacrificing herself so the rebels could get away. It's kind of weird that the only thing saving the rebels was that their ship was only like a little tiny bit faster than anything the First Order had, but they had those big ships with the big powerful cannons. They couldn't catch up with the rebels.
I will say this. That when, ridiculous moment or not, in your opinion, or the fact that it wasn't used before and it could have been as a tactic before in a previous Star Wars, I will say this: the moment when it does happen,
it's cool.
It's very cool. And actually, everybody went quiet in the theater, and all of a sudden, you see the flash of light and the explosion, and you heard several people gasp, and a couple people I heard actually said, "Whoa!" And at very, very few times at the movies today, when you think people have seen everything, do you actually get that kind of out loud astonishment from a scene in any movie, much less Star Wars.
Right. It was unexpected. And at that point, like, she had to do something like that other than, it would have been, they built her character up, and it would have been kind of disappointing for her character if she just died from laser fire. So I like where they went with that part. All right. So the next thing was the whole thing with Snoke. Like, they built him up to be this big villain. And it's fine. That was a curveball, and Rian Johnson just threw a bunch of curveballs in this. And this is one I didn't mind so much, but it has some weird logic. Like, if he's all powerful, why couldn't he sense what Kylo Ren was doing, or at least hear the lightsaber kind of rattling on the chair? And I know that's a little tiny, nitpicking type thing, but it just seems like there's logical things that they didn't want to address in some of these parts. Did you what are your thoughts on Snoke? Like, what was
Well, I just feel like it's incomplete, because I know some people didn't mind the fact that he was bumped off already in the Star Wars structure, but I wanted to see a background on Snoke. How did he come to be? How did he come to be in power? How did he go ahead and start influencing Ben Solo? I mean, it's all off screen that we're supposed to assume all this stuff. And I'm not going to go take the time to read all the novels that you have planned for it, or even if there's any other side video stuff, or through Attack of the Clones, or however you want to go ahead and try and flesh out the story anymore. I'm not going to be able to take the time to do that. I wanted it actually on the screen, watching one of the episodes and seeing Snoke's character develop. And unfortunately, that was, to me, a little bit disappointing, because I didn't get to see exactly how he became such a big shot when it came to the Force. Although it appears, after what happened and his death at the hands of Kylo Ren, that he wasn't the baddest boy on the block after all.
Right. But, like you said, like they had made him a very mysterious character, and I kind of liked that aspect. Even if he wasn't going to be, I knew that the final confrontation was probably going to be between Kylo Ren and Rey. It would eventually get to that point, but I still would have liked to see Snoke fleshed out a little more. And this is like where the divide with like these millennial bloggers is coming in. Is they're like, so what? You don't get to see Snoke. Who cares? It's just Rian Johnson's a masterpiece, or he's a genius. And I don't know, man. It was one I would have liked to see. Because as someone who likes stories, who likes intricate stories, I like to know where these characters are coming from, what they're doing. I'm not a huge fan of spur of the moment things, but that might just be me.
Well, I'll tell you like this. How many episodes are there? We're going on number 8 right now, right? And you devote at least 2 hours to each and every film. So that's 16 hours plus. Let's say 17 with all and more combined with all that. You couldn't find any more time within the structure of that 17 hours to build up Snoke's character even more or flesh out his character even more than what you did. The Force Awakens, if you had big plans for this character, I think The Force Awakens should have done more to develop his character, or maybe provide some backstory within the framework of The Force Awakens. It certainly would have helped that movie, because obviously, if you take a look at my list on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com that I recently updated to include The Last Jedi, I say that even despite all of its problems, and it's got numerous problems, it is still ahead of The Force Awakens, because The Force Awakens played it so safe and by the book as far as what it went out to do. So my thoughts on The Last Jedi, as I stated before, it's just all over the place, from very good to very bad to truly awesome. And it goes all over the map as far as my thoughts on the film as I'm watching it, depending on which part you're actually viewing. So those things that could have been fleshed out in Chapter 7 could have helped Chapter 8 out even more, like fleshing out his character, maybe even introducing us to Vice Admiral Holdo, then giving her a little bit more of a story arc, maybe also including fleshing out Poe Dameron's character even more. So it just seemed like you could have done some more things in Chapter 7 to set up Chapter 8 even more for success and a better foundation.
Yeah, and also they threw away some good opportunities to carry out some really not intricate, but interesting plot points for Episode 9. They had a chance to leave some intrigue going into it, but now it feels like Episode 9 is just this blank slate, and nobody really knows what's going on. It seems
like, I mentioned it last night on the topic Apocalypse, is that I thought in many ways Chapter 8 felt like a Chapter 9, and that it was a conclusion to many story arcs, maybe too much so and that's why I think a lot of people have issue with it.
Yeah, and it's the review, the critics and millennials, not millennial, but the critics and bloggers love it, but it's a very divisive film among fans. I got some other things here, like they kept comparing this movie to Empire Strikes Back, which I tried to go into this movie having zero expectations, no standard set. They're saying this is like Empire Strikes Back, and a lot of people I talked to are like, yeah, it's like Empire Strikes Back. So I go in there, and it is nothing like Empire Strikes Back. So where Empire Strikes Back gives you a chance to explore the universe of Star Wars, you go to all these cool places. You go to you go to Hoth, you get the belly of the worm, you go to Sky City, you're in the Dagobah system. And they used that movie to kind of explore relationships. So you have the Luke and Darth Vader. You find out that Darth Vader is Luke's father, and then you have the romance plot being explored between Han and Leia. And then in this one, they didn't really do a lot of character development. A lot of the characters got a lot of screen time, but they didn't do a lot of exploring them. Like, for example, I already know that Kylo Ren is like a whiny teenager. There's not a lot to that. And, the big reveal of how he became how he was kind of it kind of fell flat with me. Like the whole thing where he's having trouble with the whole thing with him and Luke was caused based on a misunderstanding. Like Luke had a moment where he's going to strike him down, but instead of like talking about it, Kylo Ren just destroys him. So that was another thing that kind of got me. And then the whole thing with Finn, I liked Finn. Finn in episode 7 was kind of a tragic hero. He was conscripted into the First Order army as a kid, and then he gets out there, doesn't want to kill. He does this thing to escape. But in this movie, instead of going further with his character, diving into his personality, they turned him into this Jack Sparrow of the Star Wars universe.
Well, it just seems like that they had way too much to do in the middle. That's why I think it ultimately, for me, the middle was really flat and uninteresting, was because that there was just so much for them to do, and they were actually trying to split it up into 4 different pieces and try to tell 4 different stories at the same time. And that, to me, got a little bit convoluted. It became very much watered down, and all 4 of these stories got hurt because of it. So that being said, I just, like I said, for me, that was really a low point of the movie, was that middle part. And I actually think the part where, you know, Finn and Rose meet up with DJ, they go to the casino planet, all that stuff, and then them sneaking on board the Empire ship and the First Order ship and all that, that was unnecessary. It ultimately did it not, or did it not? You know, tell me yes or no. I mean, did it not prove to be out to be a waste of time for the entire overall story arc, and just prove to be something for just the characters to stay busy doing during the course of the movie?
Yeah, it didn't really further anything, and like everyone's saying, is a big part of the movie with Finn and Captain Plasma, but like Phasma, she was the big, she's like one of the big baddies of the movie, and they kept hyping her up in the promo material and all that, and then she just had a very stupid death.
A very quick death. She was barely on screen.
Yeah, so that was weird to me. I did like the confrontation with the Red Guards. That was really cool. You know, we didn't get a legitimate lightsaber duel, but we got that whole kung fu like lightsaber scene.
I enjoyed that thoroughly. I thought it was very different. And overall, the reason why I'm giving it a slight thumbs up above The Force Awakens is the fact that Rian Johnson took some chances. He took a lot of things out that we were expecting to see and put things in there that we weren't. Made a lot of changes, maybe some for the better, maybe some not. But he did take a lot of chances. And for that boldness, to me, that paid off at the end, because the last chapter, especially Mark Hamill carrying it with his self-awareness of both real life and within the Star Wars mythos, his character, it really paid off with a great ending, especially with him leading the way and having an outstanding performance.
Right. No, his performance was great. I know he disagreed with where Rian Johnson was taking the movie, but you know, it wasn't something that I was disappointed with in the end. You know, like you said, Rian Johnson took chances, and I give him props for that. I don't know. I hope there's an overall plan. Him and J.J. Abrams have something up their sleeve, and it's possible maybe I do need to watch this movie again, but it was. I look at it kind of the same way I look at Star Wars Episode 2. Like, there are parts like that I'm like, oh, what the heck is going on? Like, why would they do this? And there are parts where I'm like, oh yeah, that was really cool. So it felt like it had a lot of acts to me, like too many acts. Instead of 3, maybe like 5 or 6. So it was just a very weird movie for me. My last 2 complaints here are Admiral Akbar got a very poor death. We discussed this last night. If anything, I think that it should have been Admiral Akbar who drove the spaceship into the First Order to go out if they really needed to get rid of him. And then my last thing here is that it overall, like, it had less feel of a Star Wars movie. And I'm not saying that from the point like, oh, this wasn't a Star Wars movie. It very much was a Star Wars movie, but I'm talking about the tone of the movie was less Star Wars and more Marvel. You have like it had a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok moments, and I think that those were just things we didn't need.
It felt more comedic and light toned at times when it needed to be serious. So I definitely can empathize with that as far as assessment as far as what you think about The Last Jedi. So you're not as high on it as I am. And even I'm not that super gray on it, but I know there are a lot of people that do enjoy it. If you want to share your thoughts on The Last Jedi, let us know. Share it with us, please. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. We'll share it on the air. We'd be more than happy to. It's not a problem. We're always glad to do so, and we do appreciate you listening and checking us out. But I also want to make sure and let everybody know that I also want to make sure, Josh, and well, actually, I'll ask you, Josh. I'll phrase it this way. With this weekend being the second major weekend, schools being let out, kids are now going on Christmas break. What do you see in line for The Last Jedi for a second weekend? Because this is where we can start to tell just how well the movie is going to perform. Right now, it's tracking about 20 to 25% less than The Force Awakens, because of maybe just the way it was scheduled and framed around Christmas break and whatnot. Force Awakens in this past few days has kind of lengthened that buffer, or maybe it's because of the flack that it's getting and social media and whatnot. But I want to ask you, when you've also got Jumanji as far as coming out this week, also as well, Pitch Perfect 3, The Shape of Water being expanded. You also have the paper. Is it the paper or the chase? Let me check. What's the one with Tom Hanks that's coming? Oh, sorry. The Post coming out. Also as well, Downsizing, Father Figures. You've got so many films that are coming out this week, not including anything coming out on Christmas. How do you think The Last Jedi, even with all the flack it's getting from those people who are just really relentless with their petitions and their viral anger towards the movie, how do you think that's still going to perform this weekend at the box office?
I think it's going to get that holiday bump. Everyone's going to be going to the movies. Christmas is always a very oddly good time for movies because people go to the movies on Christmas. So that's, I remember from when I worked at a movie theater, it was packed that day. So, I think it's got that on its side, and it's still got the. I don't think it's been released in China yet, right? It's been
after China will be the only major market that it will not be released on in 2018. It's being due to their structure as far as how they're due to their release structure. It will be released, I believe, on January 5th.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's still on its uphill climb as far as box office numbers go. So we'll see. I predict it's going to do very well over Christmas.
I think it will. I think it will do fine. I think if it does anywhere near 1.7, 1.8 billion dollars, that Disney will be doing backflips, because that'll be 700 to 800 million more than what Rogue One did. So, and that's just in line with what they're probably hoping for or expecting at this point in time. So definitely something to look forward to, and we'll keep updating as far as that's concerned. But if you also want to check our written thoughts, you want to check out our post, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. You want to check my thoughts out on the Star Wars series as a whole and where I rank The Last Jedi. Yes, I said above The Force Awakens, but I didn't mention all the others. So you got to check out exactly where I rank The Last Jedi in the Star Wars saga, indeed. Well, we've got a great show, like I said. We've got director Rob McCallum and also Jay Bartlett from Star Wars Echo 3. Together, they make up the great documentary Nintendo Quest. They're standing by in the Cosmic Crossfire with their own spoilerish opinions on The Last Jedi. Then we've got Ben Arnaud from the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. He's going to share some holiday cooking tips for those in need for a great meal this Christmas. And also as well, on the back end, you've got Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. He's going to give a quick recap he's going to give a quick preview of Week 16 in the NFL and share his thoughts because he's seen the movie The Last Jedi and he wants to go ahead and share his thoughts as well. Then Josh and I will be back at the back end to share some final thoughts on The Last Jedi and where we think the series is going from here. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. And just to thank everybody that's out there that's listening in on us, that tunes in each week, whether they're on Apple Podcasts, the ESO Network, the Tangibound Network, the Gonna Geek Network, Podchaser, or any one of our over a dozen different podcast networks. We thank you so much for doing so, and we wish you the happiest and safest of holidays. We will be here next week, both Monday and Friday, giving you more with brand new episodes, talking about all the great stuff that went on in 2017 with a best of TV, movies, and all pop and a lot more pop culture categories. So you definitely want to check out both our Monday and Friday shows, because while these other programs are taking a break for the holidays, we're staying right in tune at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So Josh, any last thoughts on the way out? Oh, I'm sorry. So Josh, you got a great thing going on with your awesome media corporation, I should call it, called Humanica Media. So what's going on with all the wonderful things at Humanica Media?
Yeah, so tonight you'll be able to hear a new episode of Topic Ocalypse, which features a Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos. We'll have a new Inside Sports going up, and then on tomorrow you'll be able to hear a special Christmas themed What About This? And then we'll be shutting down until probably after Christmas. So we won't have any new content up for maybe probably until then. So you got a few podcasts to look forward to, and then you can keep following us on Facebook, send us emails. And same thing with Pop Culture Cosmos. We love emails here, so we would love to talk to you on the show, answer any questions you have, or even just interact with you guys.
We do indeed. And yes, it's a great chance this next week to get to touch base on all the great back episodes from Humanica Media, whether it be What About This, also as well the Super BS Gamescast, Topic Ocalypse, Inside Sports, and so much more. So you get a chance to catch up on those episodes while you're checking out the new episodes from the Pop Culture Cosmos next week. And we truly appreciate you checking out all of our programs this past year and so much more. We cannot thank you enough for doing so. So Josh, The Last Jedi, tell you what, it's the movie that's probably not going to die or go away anytime soon as far as the controversy going forward. Your thoughts on an episode 9? What tale is there left to tell, and could there have been too much in the way of closure for a lot of story arcs in The Last Jedi?
That's the question, isn't it? That's the one everyone's coming out of the theater and all the bloggers are yelling at each other over. And that's another thing people were accusing me of thinking that there's nothing left. But I think there's plenty left. There's a lot of story to flesh out. You still have, obviously Kylo Ren has gone full dark side, and you have that whole thing with Ren. They're going to have some kind of confrontation. Who lives and who dies? There's no like big reveal. Kylo Ren's not Rey's father or anything, but I think that we could see them backtracking on that decision to make Rey's parents nobodies, because I think that took a lot of intrigue out of the story. But
he swears it's the truth. Rian Johnson has gone on record in interviews saying it's the truth that is Rey's parents. I'm not still 100% sold on myself, but then again, it could be the ultimate swerve not being a swerve.
Yeah, and it'd just be another one of those things they set up in episode 7 that they kind of just, took a dump on. But hey, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I hope that they get a lot of the characters that have been slightly ignored in this past movie get some kind of resolution, get some kind of big story that will put a lot at stake for them. Finn, for example, Chewbacca is someone I'd like to see have their due. Also, the droids, like if C-3PO and R2-D2 were huge parts of the last like 6 Star Wars movies, and this is, granted that these new movies, they're closing up old chapters or whatever, but like I would like to see them have some kind of something in there.
Because they really haven't done much in episodes 7 and 8 because they've been leaving it to BB-8.
Yeah, they haven't, and the very few scenes that they do have, like the scene with Luke and R2-D2, was not as emotional as one would expect, and then C-3PO is kind of just, he's just there. He's like in the X-Men, how they have all those side characters, and they say a few lines of dialogue and don't really do much. So I'm hoping to see something with that, but there needs to be something big to happen because, like I mentioned last night, both the Resistance and the First Order are in absolute tatters, and at this point, it seems like they're a couple of trailer parks just fighting each other while the rest of the world just kind of sits back and looks at how petty they are. So there needs to be something big. Maybe like I would love to see something that affects the entire universe and has the First Order and the Resistance come together in some way, but that's just my inner writer thinking deep into storylines here. But I ask you this though: where do you think the story could go? Where would you like it to go as a fan of Star Wars?
Well, I'll actually parlay it into something like this. I mentioned in Topic Apocalypse, I had a little bit of a reservation with the ending and resolving of Carrie Fisher's status because, as unfortunate as it is, she did pass away after the filming had completed with The Last Jedi. But they did have an opportunity for her character to go out on what I thought was a truly meaningful moment within the Star Wars realm. So I think that's something that they're going to have to answer as well. How are they going to have something, first of all, very graceful in the way they have her exit the series? Also as well, will it be meaningful and important to the overall story arc as far as the Star Wars saga is concerned? Could it be anywhere near what as impactful as what happened when she was blown out in space along with Admiral Akbar and several others by the TIE fighters that were surrounding Kylo Ren? And, yes, she used the Force to control herself to get back into the spaceship from being in outer space, which would have, which killed everybody else, but she managed to survive it because of her Force powers. That was a nice, touching moment, but seeing what happened in real life after it, they might have been better suited by having her character finish that story arc there, being able to shoot around it and create different storylines that maybe would have set in motion a lot more good things for episode 9. Like, for instance, Holdo would have lived, Admiral Akbar could have done the suicide mission, which you preferred, things like that. And also as well, but I do want to say that Rian Johnson and the Lucasfilm did a great thing by having Carrie Fisher's daughter become a character that's now could have a future within the Star Wars realm, because her character is one of those last few remaining rebels in the movie is Lieutenant Connix. She is actually was seen and got several lines of dialogue, so definitely was glad to see that, and glad that they treated her character and for her mom respectful and with respect. And I think that there could be a future for her character going forward in the film. But I think for the overall story arc, I think it's going to have to lead to Rey versus Kylo Ren. Rey has stated that she is done after episode 9 for at least the interim with the Star Wars saga. So whether or not she becomes a victor or not is kind of up in the air. Adam Driver hasn't talked about anything about his future going forward, so he may actually survive and prosper out of this. He may, whether he turns to good or whatnot, and they want to go ahead with an episode 10, what have you. That's kind of a different story arc there, but I think it will, with knowing that J.J. Abrams is sitting behind the chair in this episode 9 coming up, I think he's going to play it again close to the vest, very safe, and it will be a standard Rey versus Kylo Ren, with Rey coming out on top and ultimately saving the Star Wars galaxy, and then focusing on a Rian Johnson created universe coming up maybe in 2, 3, 4 years down the line after that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Honestly, I would like to just see them wrap this up with episode 9. Like, as far as these characters go, whatever Rian Johnson does next, I would like it to be separate from this. I'm kind of tired of the whole, I'm tired of the whole Jedi, Sith, government type battles, government or Empire resistance. I'm kind of tired of that arc. I would like to see something new play out, something on a bigger scale. Bring the Jedi's back, cool, but I'd kind of like to see the whole Skywalker saga and what's old completely come to an end, and just give us something fresh, something from the beginning that doesn't even feed off of the last trilogy of movies.
Well, I had said previously that I wanted to see both universes concurrently, and I thought there was room in the Star Wars fandom to have a Rian Johnson's come out 1 year, then a couple years down the line, a Star Wars Skywalker saga film, then it goes back forth to a couple years later to Rian Johnson. But after watching The Last Jedi, I don't believe there's enough characters. I don't believe there's enough characters left to sustain the Skywalker saga past Episode 9. So I definitely see some type of resolution to the entire thing. Would have hoped for it to go longer, but obviously, I mean, seeing the landscape of where it is, I don't think that's going to happen. So I think with what's left, the pieces of what's left, and they're not going to throw too many more new pieces into it, I don't think that there's going to be much longer for the Skywalker saga, and they're just going to go full board into this Rian Johnson created universe in a different point in time, in a different part of the galaxy, yada, 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 and be able to create something new there that, I don't know, maybe fans may or may not like, because there's a serious backlash against Rian Johnson right now. But we'll have to wait and see. What do casual audiences think? We know what the hardcore Star Wars fan base does, the vocal Star Wars fan base, the fan base that doesn't want progression and doesn't want or care for things in the universe that they feel is threatening to them. That is very sad to see. You can not like a film, and you can for positive reasons, and like you, Josh, you don't criticize it for bad reasons. When you have criticism, they're very valid, they're very constructive, and they're very positive as far as trying to make sure that the Star Wars saga continues in a positive fashion for viewers. There's a lot of negatives. There's a lot of negativity out there that is really just harsh and just unwarranted in regards to what's going on, because they see things as far as, there's too many females in power, or there's, the men in the picture are not strong enough or strong-willed enough, yada yada, or they're killing off all the original characters. Well, I'm sorry, it's not going to be the way you want it to be for those individuals, those few individuals out there trying to dictate the rest of the Star Wars saga. But for those out there who are disappointed in a lot of the original characters dying, I got to say this: a lot of the original characters from 4, 5, and 6, they're getting up there in years. They can't be around forever. I mean, Mark Hamill's in his 60s. Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, she was 60. Harrison Ford was in the 70s. I mean, Billy D. Williams, if he comes back for Lando with an appearance in Episode 9, he'll be in his 60s or 70s. I mean, you just cannot continue with a lot of these beloved characters because they are getting up there in age and they can't be around forever. So finding constructive ways for them leaving the series should be paramount at this point in time.
Yeah, right. And I know they're kind of doing a service to the fans by fully closing those arcs, and that's good for them. But at the same time, they got a long history of lore and a long history of, if fans were willing to sit through the prequels, and obviously they're still huge fans of the series. So I think they kind of owe it to them at the same time to be respectful of the characters and what they do with them. as far as how they end them in the series. But that might just be me, and it's probably some angry millennial blogger is going to listen to this and write a whole article about how I'm wrong.
Well, it won't be for me. That's okay, because I'm not angry and I'm certainly not a millennial. But if you want to send your thoughts to us on The Last Jedi, send it to us, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter, and also robmccallumfilms.com or Rob McCallum Films on Facebook. Rob McZob on Twitter as well. You can send thoughts to him. He can forward it over to us, or he'll answer it on this next edition of the Cosmic Crossfire as well. So we want to thank everybody for joining us. Rob McCallum, Jay Bartlett.
And Merry Christmas.
Oh, well, that's the next episode, man. Sorry, too early, man. Shush. Not yet. But happy holidays and safe travels, safe shopping. I know people are starting to travel out there. Tyler Baker, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And Ben Arnault from the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Appreciate all your great cooking tips this whole entire year, and especially this episode as well. But safe travels out there when you're shopping, and watch out for everybody trying to get those last minute gifts. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening, all you Jedis out there. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.